distinguished gathering, ladies and gentlemen. I think when I come to this podium, my mind takes back to 18 years, where we as cadets underwent some rigorous training on this same podium with the compliments of some of the instructors who are on my desk now. I am thankful to them. But today my topic is something different. I'm trying to talk about maritime security concerns and the future role of the Sri Lanka Coast Guard. I look to talk upon, touch the importance of maritime security, changing nature of maritime environment and the Coast Guard, a future role of the Sri Lanka Coast Guard, and well as the strategic way forward. Now we all know after 2009, and importantly, year 2009 remained as an important landmark in our history. So after 3 years of winning the war, development tops our agenda apart from many other things. So seas around us remain as a key to maritime security, commerce, as well as trade. So if we talk about our lifeline, we are basically talking about our seas. So we need to safeguard our seas. Now, as a military law enforcement agency, the recently established Sri Lanka Coast Guard has a big role to play. A future expansion of the Coast Guard will definitely assist the other agencies in aspects such as safeguarding maritime security, maritime safety, and resources. Now, for those who are not aware of what really Coast Guard is, because I had some other questions during some of the tea sessions from where I am. So, Coast Guard was recently established. If you see the concept for this, it is the concept of the present President, His Excellency the President Mahinda Rajapaksa. As a Minister of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, he forwarded a concept paper in 1998 and formed the Coast Guard. But subsequently in 2002, this was disbanded. The assets were given back to Coast Conservation Department. Later again, as the Defence Minister, he forwarded a cabinet paper where the Coast Guard came into effect with the enacting of Act number 41 of 2009. Now, I am not going to discuss about the powers, but if you can go through the powers, it highlights basically the maritime law enforcement part. We are basically the police side of what you should do out at sea. So there are enormous powers vested on the Coast Guard as anywhere in the world. Now, we need to understand the importance of maritime security, because maritime security itself concerns about maritime assets, practices, territorial integrity, and law and order. But many tend to view this as a defense concept, which is not. It needs to combine with the concept of effective management of oceans, environment, and resources. Now, protecting marine resources and preparedness for maritime disaster response is an integral part of maritime security. Assisting in providing a stable and a peaceful socio-political and administrative background will further enhance. What we're trying to look through maritime security is basically to foster sustained profitability and growth for maritime industries. Now, we all know international commerce is rapidly growing, and certain sea lanes are vulnerable at strategic choke points. So, we being a part of the international maritime trading web, our seas, maritime security is very crucial for Sri Lanka. Now, we need to understand after 2009, the maritime environment itself has changed. Before 2009, we had a clear enemy, but after 2009, we don't have a visible enemy out at sea. But that does not really mean that our seas are safe. We need to look beyond terrorism, armed robbery, piracy. Because the less visible issues that we saw before 2009, there's a possibility of these converting into much more greater maritime disasters in the long run. Oceans and waterways will definitely stand to continue as conduits for transnational issues such as pollution, overfishing, illegal immigration, drug smuggling, and terrorism, and many more other components. So maritime domain is being shaped by changes that are powering its yield and usefulness. So this increases its complication and susceptibility. Now, the future role of the Coast Guard for a Coast Guard that is recently established, maritime security concerns can be seen as an aim that is very far. But yet, if you take the international forum, you will see the world, almost all the countries in the world, the Coast Guard is the leading maritime law enforcement agency because they are vested with the powers. So, in this context, Sri Lanka Coast Guard truly need to expand into a formidable organization that has the capability to protect our maritime interest. Now, the future roles will be basically on maritime safety role, where we can assist in minimizing damages to the maritime environment, assist in saving lives out at sea, conducting search and operations, assisting salvage operations, and as well as disseminating some vital information. Because we see there's a growth of rapid progress in using our EC. So the growth in activity, in the other hand, increases risk to mariners, communities, as well as ecosystems. So challenges the traditional legal systems or regimes that are present today, and also the capabilities for governing. We all know the international maritime trade is rapidly moving up. Now we need to check whether the adherence to regulations, Sri Lankan regulations and international standards have been followed by the ships that are calling in our ports, because a substandard ship that is entering into one of our ports can create a huge disaster on the marine environment aspect as well as on the security aspect. The marine security role is the other component where Sri Lanka Coast Guard can effectively take part by assisting the Navy and the other components in maintaining sovereign control over the sea. Now, with the expected future expansion and capacity building, Sri Lanka will, Coast Guard will try to work with the other agencies in preventing IUU fishing, which have been dealt in length, protection of fishermen from various issues out at sea, and also assist relevant authorities in combating illegal smuggling and immigration. And apart from them, piracy and armed robbery is another aspect where we can contribute, suppress terrorist activities if there's anything to come in, and of course prevent transboundary movement of narcotics. Now these transnational threats emerge out at sea because of its vastness. When the sea becomes vast, surveillance becomes less. Like the problem in Somalia, basically a weak state, no surveillance. It provides opportunity for various non-state actors to mix with this domain and conduct illegal activities. So, because we don't see any maritime borders, rigid borders out at sea rather than on land, so it's easy for somebody to cross the borders. Then comes natural resources, because this will remain as one of the most important component in the in achieving sustainable development in our country. I'm for sure all know that there's a huge amount of natural resources that are in our EC as well as the EC that is going to be expanded in the future, which is untouched. We need to effectively manage these marine resources, and in that concern, Sri Lanka Coast Guard can assist in preventing pollution, environmental degradation, spread of various invasive species, illegal harvesting of marine resources, and aspects such as ballast water discharge out of the waters in our EC. In this context, we need rigorous law enforcement. That is the basic. So Sri Lanka Coast Guard will assist in the preservation and protection of marine environment. At the same time, we will assist in conservation of marine species. Now, ships, the sizes have been growing larger. If you take a cruiser today, nearly 18 decks, 6,000 people on board. Imagine a ship of this nature get into trouble in our waters. So we have a huge responsibility in responding to such. And even if you take the oil spill situation, the Greek ship, for your information, is sinking now off Colombo. It's been lying there for some time. So as of now, the latest information says the ship is sinking now off Colombo. So no organization in the country is capable of handling major oil spill. So that's a requirement. The Coast Guard is trying to expand its capacities in doing so. Now, maritime governance basically covers all these roles, but it involves the use of institutions, structures of authority, sovereign capabilities to oversee maritime activities, and safeguard national maritime interest. Now, effective positioning of maritime governance, because the Coast Guard is the maritime law enforcement agency. For them, it will be a greater role in the future. Now, how we are going to achieve this? Basically, I have identified 5 key components in this in order to strengthen the Coast Guard as a leading maritime law enforcement authority. We will try to explore the flexible operational capabilities as well as to mix the expertise knowledge that we have so that we can achieve an integrated systematic approach to maritime governance. Strengthening maritime regimes will be a key component in this. Coordinated and knitted domestic and international regimes should support in increasing the transparency of activities out at our seas, reduce our risk, and also balance competing uses within our EEC. So strengthened rules, authorities, and agreements will enable consistent and coordinated actions on threats. So we're trying to forward an acceptable framework for these standards that facilitate commerce and maritime use in the long run. The regional dialogue is very important. We are in the process of doing that. And this is basically in terms of strengthening maritime domain. if you strengthen maritime domain, you will have improved transparency out at sea, and this will obviously reduce the risk. So the Coast Guard can identify and categorize different uses in the EEZ. Maritime domain awareness is another important aspect where we try to blending of information, analyze, and in order to disseminate certain maritime information with the key stakeholders like the Navy. So we will try to work along with many organizations that I mentioned there. They are the key partners in looking after the marine domain. Now, amazing of maritime data, we see an information gap, crucial gap in the maritime domain if you take anywhere in the world. So Sri Lanka Coast Guard can come into play and assist in any way that we can provide a link, close this gap. So our activities in the EEZ, obviously too large to be monitored by the Navy. That is understood with the limited capabilities that they have. So the future Maritime Rescue Coordinating Center that we are expected to have in the long run will give some assistance to the Navy also. So we will have a transparency from the smallest boat to the biggest ship plying in our seas. Enhancing unity of effort is simple in terms because increasing challenges, rapid changing nature of the maritime domain require all stakeholders to work in unison. So whatever you have, work in unison. And the Coast Guard in particular will look into expand its command, control and communication, all the C3 capabilities in order to doing this. Now, what are the assets that we're going to acquire in the future will definitely be part of the national defense along with the Navy. So regional assistance and the international assistance remain very important in this regard because the region, Asian region encounters similar problems that we encounter today. So building strong relationships, coordination to shape and regulate maritime governance will be a key aspect we are looking in. By that we try to enhance maritime domain awareness. When doing this, we are focusing on a broader regional maritime engagement strategy. Now, if you are aware about the Heads of Asian Coast Guard Agency meeting, will be conducted annually with the participation of 18 countries in the region, we have made our clear views on the importance of this aspect. So in conclusion, I would like to say the maritime environment is been rapidly changing. It obviously brings new challenges. So the future development will depend on maritime resources if we are to achieve sustainable development in this country. Effective maritime governance, because we need to look in who does what in our waters, and we need to regulate, we need to monitor, and there should be a maritime law enforcement agencies. So the Sri Lanka Coast Guard will emerge as a strong link in effective marine resources management and safeguarding maritime interest. So I would like to end with a statement from Congressional District Representative Russ Carahan. He says, and I quote, "From protecting our natural resources to providing maritime security and national defense, the Coast Guard's duties are broad in scope, and the performance of those duties has never been more important than today." And I unquote. Thank you very much.